My name is Sheyann Webb. I was born and raised in Selma, Alabama, the home of the Selma Civil Rights Movement. I am presently living in Montgomery, Alabama, where I'm a youth advocate for Keep Production Youth Development and Mentoring Program. I also serve as a life coach, and I'm an author. I'm the author of the book, Selma, the book and movie, Selma, Lord Selma.
Good morning. My name is Josie Robinson Johnson, and I am a native of Texas. I was born and raised in San Antonio and Houston, Texas. I've been here in Minnesota for about 60 years and been involved blessedly in issues dealing directly with freedom, justice, and equality for African American people. And I am delighted to be here this morning to talk with my young, active sister who is still in the struggle with all of us. So thank you very much, Sheyann Ann.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and honor for me to have this conversation today.
And it's my honor, darling. I listen to you with such optimism. You give me hope, darling. And when I think about the fact that this kind of optimism is something that I had, my children have, my brothers, my etc. Everybody, I believe, who had that experience going back to, I have ancestors in the early slavery period, my grandfather. And so everybody has hoped for that. And you're still offering us hope. What I pray is that we can begin not only to give our children a verbal sense of hope, but that we can begin to identify the people who are living the dream that you had, your ancestors had, and I had, that we can show them hard work, discipline, love of their people and history. This is what can be rewarded. This is what the next generation can see and give them the kind of hope and optimism. So you are convincing me once again that you see hope. That's that eternal optimism that we have as a people. And I thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope your book and the young people who read it and who can talk together will learn a great deal from it.
You know what, Ms. Johnson, all of what you just said is so important. And as we celebrate, we're celebrating Black History Month. You know, Black History Month celebration is critically important to our young people. And I am today where I am because of the patience of those in the Black community who invested in me. So today, I feel that we must take the time to invest in our youth, introducing them to the persons whose shoulders that we stand on and whose contributions that have been enlarged. And that's important to me as I talk to young people all the time. Right now, at such a time as this, we're doing a lot of Zooming with young people. We're trying to encourage them and inspire them to really take time to not only learn about their Black history, but take real time in deciding what passions you have within you to do something about what's going on today. Because everything that we're being challenged with today, it impacts all of our lives.
Absolutely.
So there's going to be a definitive need, Ms. Johnson, for us to keep investing in our young people too. Now is the time for us to come back together again and have those meaningful and lasting dialogues,
Right.
because I truly believe that dialogue makes a difference where people can open up, young people can open up and give their versions on how they're feeling about things that are happening in the world today.
I couldn't agree with you more. And what I guess I think about when you talk about open up and dialogue, what I think about is the need to have our young children see this group of young Black women who are very active today and have created an environment of hope, pride, and optimism.
Yes.
Because what happens here in my community, I find that the need to be consistent, not only in language, listening, but also to remind our children from whence they came, because things change so quickly,
Yes.
where a lot of our young people today aren't, well, I don't know if they aren't, but so much publicity talks about what they're not doing. Here in my community, we find that there are a lot of examples of issues we thought we had moved away from, and that is being unclear in how they see their history and their people and the pride and hard work. It can be turned around so quickly.
Yes.
And the need to have people like you who are out there, who lived through that age 8 to now, who watched the success of us as a people, who heard Dr. King, the leaders of our struggle. So how important, I think, I'm so glad you're here helping us in Minnesota.
Yes, ma'am. I think again, I'm speaking to Black History Month, but for me, Black History Month is every month. I think that Black History Month affords the privilege to intentionally help our youth to connect to those rich traditions of Black folk. And with that in mind, we owe them the right to let them know that our story is not just a story to ignore or to be ashamed of.
Right.
And when we educate our children, when we educate our youth, we're getting them to value and respect Black people's history. And I think when they understand that, that's the first step for them to matriculate and to go on places and many things opening up to them where they can lift their voices, they can lift their hands, and they can act. Because this is a time that we are dependent on our young people to be the change that we've been waiting for.
And what we want to do, forgive me, I'm just thinking to build on that point, because what we must do as their elders is to teach and remind them, because, darling, few schools teach Black history. Very few communities can identify you and others out there and let our children see you, hear you, ask you critical questions. We have, I believe, we must, I believe, in not just talk about it, but then show. And I guess that's what I'm really interested in is you are showing. Many of our ancestors have shown determination, and our children need to see that determination yields the kind of success we sing about, read about, think about, and give them the courage to hang in there. Our children here, I get very worried about the number who are actually graduating from high school and who have the kind of confidence that makes them feel it's worth it. So to have you and your young people tell the story and show the results is really critical. And I'm glad you're doing it. And I pray you'll have the strength to continue to do it, to give us all that kind of encouragement that my ancestors gave us. And we hope we passed on.
Yes, ma'am. I totally agree with you. That it's imperative for us to educate our young people and to prepare them to love, to celebrate, and appreciate diversity. You know, that's even more important now. And today more than ever, with all of the racial unrest and the social injustices in which we are being played with, our youth can join in that fight for equality with the tools that foster inclusion. And when they understand that, they will be able to do this and be of a servant and be of that fighter and be of that change and lifting their voices again. And I say that all the time because one thing that we as adults must realize, it's important for us to instill in our young people that they do matter. They matter so much. And we have to keep telling them how much they matter. And right. We also need to continue to tell them how much how important it is for them to understand that their voices must be heard. Their voices must be heard. And I have learned in working with young people over the years, particularly now, we got to not only love them and embrace them and lift them, but we also need to expose our children to Black excellence and building a healthy community. And they all can be a part of that.
Right.
I was 8 years old, and it didn't take me long to understand the difference between Black and white, right and wrong. And as I matriculated in that movement, Ms. Johnson, I learned more. And after having met Dr. King, who gravitated my heart, my mind, and my soul, I truly understood what he was talking about when he was talking about that beloved community. And here today, we're still fighting for that beloved community. And this is why we got to continue to embrace, we got to be the ambassadors for our youth and embrace them with continuity. You know, you spoke about continuity earlier, and that is what really counts. We got to stay in that nurturing mode with them and training and teaching and expressing.
Absolutely.
And the biggest thing that I found in working with young people, we got to listen to them. We have to listen to them.
Yes, and I think listening and modeling.
Yes, ma'am.
And when I think about what is actually reported in the popular media, there's very little taught, told, shown about the successful young Black people who are there. And the group of young people that I know you are a model for, they see what's possible. And our children need to see and not just hear my generation or yours talk about what's possible, but to say this has happened and you can replicate this. But we have to show them, because what do you see? The media is very successful in telling the negative stories, or even having our children watch television that's negative.
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess what I'm saying is how grateful we are, my generation, that you're there, and how blessed the generation just below you, how lucky they are to have you. And I pray that, having watched the development of Black history from Black Day, Black Week to Black history,
Yes,
and to have watched some of our great warriors who came through Minnesota, who came and helped us develop the kind of attitude, pride, disposition about African American History Month. What did that mean and what did we learn? So I'm grateful that I can see one of my young people in you out there continuing the struggle. Help us help you. Make sure that my generation understands what your generation in 2021, my generation of 1950s, what how can we embrace and hug each other and make me feel at age 90 that it was worth it,
yes,
and that you are, and your generation and the next generation, that what we did had value and it's still there. And I know you're doing that in all kinds of important ways. And it's important. Keep modeling that for us
yes,
and the next generation, and tell our children, tell them who they are.
yes,
And I know that's what you're doing, and I'm grateful for that. And I hope you know that.
yes, ma'am. Most certainly. And uh, as I continue to do the works, um, and I see many others also doing the works with young people and trying to, plant seeds, educate, train, and expose them. That there's a definitive need for more people to join in our efforts, uh, to be a part of those type goals. This particular, at such a time as this, all of the things in which we're being plagued with the pandemic, racial unrest, inequities, it's just so many things. And our children have realized, many of them, I never take for granted, not any one child, regardless of what status of life that they come. Because Ms. Johnson, I've always believed that there's a gift inside of each and every one of our people. And sometimes they may not know what that gift is. Some of them do. And we have to help them bring that gift out.
Right.
And I have had the opportunity to work with a lot of young people, and I've seen that happen over the years. It takes time. And like you said earlier, we just got to embrace that idea. We got to continue to just work together and continue to plant these seeds in our young people and open the doors of truth and reconciliation conversations with them. And because our children and our youth today, they deserve a greater future than the present moment in which we're delivering now. They deserve a better future. And in order for them to get that the best future that they deserve, this is something that we must do. We must join hand in hand together and continue.
That's what Dr. King did, didn't he? He
That's,
brought us. We walked, you walked the bridge, and we're all across the rivers.
yes, ma'am.
Holding hands and loving each other. You're
Yes,
absolutely right, darling.
yes,
Got to remind us
yes,
that we love each other
yes, ma'am.
and it's okay.
And that word love is the first, that's the first piece that we have to get our children and our young people to understand. First and foremost, how important it is for them to love themselves.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because we got to get them to really understand how important that is. Because a lot of that, when they don't feel good, and many people come from different backgrounds, many variables, and many people have been impacted in their lives. We all have that can present low self-esteem to us.
That's right.
Even now, in this present age, we have to push and keep pushing ourselves.
That's what I'm saying. And I know you and the next generation and the young people that you are lucky enough to be engaged with on a regular basis. I know they hear you. What I worry about is that there are sometimes examples that seem to overcome the negative examples can overcome the yous, those who, because we don't call their names, we don't know them. So often we don't get a chance to embrace and hug and say, I love you and you are important. And darling, you're reminding us all that how critical that is. We have not lost it, have we? We have not lost the need to love each other and to show it's okay to tell someone I love you. It's perfectly okay in an environment that discourages it. We know it's okay.
Yes, yes, ma'am, it is. And as long as we keep echoing those words of hopes into our hearts first, we will
Right.
be able to exuberate that energy that we need to keep pressing this word of hope and positivity in the minds
Exactly.
of young people. And
To tell our children.
yes,
Tell them. I think about how much we could say every time we get together with 2 or 3 of our children. Tell them a story.
yes,
Tell them about some of our ancestors. Tell them about the brothers who created the kind of environment to do the things that they're doing. Remind them, tell them. And I'm so happy to know that you're out there telling those stories to our children. Thank you.
but Miss Johnson, and I want to say this before we finish talking. When I talk to the young people, and I thank God that He has given me this opportunity to be able to talk to young people across the country. When I talk to young people, I cannot just tell my story without having no interest in what their stories are, because everybody has a story.
Right.
In many settings, when I'm intimately involved with young people, I said, now I've told you my story. What's yours? I want to hear your story. I want to listen to your story. And I want to hear you engage in something that you have a passion. And many times we have to be creative when we work with young people. We do. We have to be very creative with them, because this is a different age. This is a different time. But as
Do they have stories to tell you? Do they tell you stories?
yes, ma'am. Some of them would come from a story that they may have experienced that's sad. One could be happy, but everyone has a story. It's only when you ask them. And there are courageous young people who are ready to speak about their stories. And then sometimes we have to give them those assignments to go and learn more, and they bring it back to us. We have an incentive program that's a part of our program. And we do things like that. We ask them to find one of the most historic person that you may love and you may be about, even if it's your parent, you can do that. But bring that story back to us.
Right. Excellent, darling. I wish you continued strength, not only for what you do for the community that we know and love, but you're also reaching out to so many other people besides the young people that you love. And we thank you. I'm so grateful to Monique, Linda, for giving me an opportunity to meet and visit with you. And I hope we'll have other opportunities where you can tell me your stories and I can react to them and tell you your elder stories. We need to do that. And we need to make sure that the stories we tell have a lot of positive,
Yes,
hopeful, loving sentences in it so that our children believe us and know that we mean what we're saying.
yes, ma'am.
I'm so glad.
I'm so glad and I'm so happy too that I've had this opportunity.
Thank you.
And I look forward to meeting you in person. And and I must say before we end that much of our present and future hope, Ms. Johnson, is rooted in the historical achievements of our predecessors. And our stories they should be shared, and our stories must be told.
Right.
Thank you so much for giving
Thank you, my darling. How very nice. And I wish you good health, darling, and safety.
Thank you.
And keep telling our children who they are.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
It's been an honor for me.
It's been my honor. Hope to see you in the future.
The same here.
Come back to Minnesota.
I will. I'm looking forward to that. And
Well,
one of the first persons that I'm going to be asking about. So
I hope.
I just want to give you a big hug.
I too.
I love you.
I love you too, darling. You are worth everything we can think about. So thank you very much. Love to your mother, your grandmother, your great aunts, all the women who made you who you are. So thank them for this old lady. And I hope I see you really soon. That's an assignment to Monique, isn't it?
No, I was born, and as a matter of fact, in the 60s, as that 8-year-old girl, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Right.
I was out there in the fields with the freedom fighters as that little girl, being with them, knocking on doors.
Yes, darling.
And ultimately, my parents would become registered voters.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what we are hoping, isn't it? That kind of historical continuity,
yes, ma'am,
can be heard, seen, understood, and adopted. Because you are an excellent example of that. And of course, you were born in 64. I was just being a little fresh.
I was born in 1956. As a matter of fact, I'm 64 years old now.
Isn't that something?
I turned 65. And you know what?
Congratulations.
it, it's hard for me to talk about voting without mentioning uh, the late Congressman John Lewis.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to meet him. Dr. King introduced Congressman Lewis to me when I was that little girl. And of course, we've been able to have that connection from that time up until his death, and the magnitude and the authenticity of Congressman Lewis, the magnitude of his death, I don't think we have even felt it yet. But I'm more optimistic, Ms. Johnson, just what we've seen in our young people as we have worked with them all over the country, getting out to become first-time registered voters and helping to get our new president in and our first African-American woman president in. And then the initiatives that we've taken, even with my youth program. I've had young people to go out and we train them how to canvass and how the importance of voting. Even those who are not of age to vote, they're looking forward to voting because they are part of the process, you know.
You know, that's what is so, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that is so critical, what you're just sharing with us. The fact that I'm saying you are what the children need to see. They need to see that the description you can share so freely, honestly, and often with our children. We were very close to John Lewis. My son-in-law and John Lewis were best of friends. Andrew Young. And I'm just saying, when I think of my blessed years, I knew those people. I had a chance to have them reconfirm what my parents and my community of people who believed in us, the people from my university, Fisk University, and other Black institutions that taught Black children who they are and brought examples before us. That's, I pray, we can return to. I believe that it's critical for our children to see you, to see the young people you work with, see the results of your sharing with them your history, not only your personal experienced history, but the history of the other people who supported you. And I believe there are efforts that must be made once again to get us to see each other, to share each other, because we sometimes don't identify enough with current conditions with our children for them to feel that their ancestors set the stage for where we are right now. And they have lots of faith. The struggle of lynching and murders and raping of our women. Our people know about that or need to know about that. And they need to know the strength and the courage of all of those people and their stories. Darling, we could go on for days, couldn't we?
Yes, we can, Ms. Johnson. You know, and as you have, as we have talked about the importance of those initiatives that were in the 60s and those voting initiatives that were taken in 2020, and those voting initiatives that have to take place as we move into our future. We all have learned the importance of the power that we have with the power of the vote. and letting our voices be heard. And that is what we teach our young people. And one thing that I've learned, Ms. Johnson, through this process this year, not just 5 years ago, but many years ago, I started teaching our young people about the power of the vote. Because I saw that, I experienced that. I went through the whole experience of seeing us get that right to vote and what it took for us to get that right to vote. So one of the best educational tools that we can continue to use for our young people is to have them engage. Because when they become engaged in any project, then they are learning and they are getting exposed and they're getting excited. That's when you're pressing the button with them for them to find their passions. And I've seen it over and over again. So my thing with young people now and will always be is the importance of finding your passion, and using that passion right now that you have deep down inside of you and being a great servant. It was one quote that has stuck with me always, Ms. Johnson, that I've held to my heart. In one of Dr. King's speeches, he said that everyone can be great because everyone can serve. You only need a heart full of grace with a soul that's generated by love. That's
And they're out there. And your generation, they're out there, aren't they, darling?
Yes, they are.
And I think that the disservice that the media here in Minnesota and other places as well only tell stories, the negative stories, the ones that don't give children hope, that aren't telling the truth. They really don't. And our children need to learn from you and your ancestors to keep on keeping on, as my father would say to us over and over.
The first day that I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Martin Luther King was a day that I'll vivid moment and a day that I would never, ever forget. I remember being that little girl, seeing these beautiful cars driving up in front of the now historic Browns Chapel Church. And after these cars had driven up, my best friend Rachel and I at that time, we were just playing in front of the church like we normally do. And we found ourselves going towards the cars, and we saw these people getting out of the cars. And we went to the first two cars, and there were these men who were surrounding this one particular man. And one of the men was assisting him with putting his suit coat jacket on. And he looked at us and he said, "Do you children know who this man is?" And of course, we didn't know who any of them were. He said to us, "This is Dr. Martin Luther King." And immediately after he introduced us to Dr. King started asking us the normal questions that adults will ask children. He asked us our names, where do we live? He asked us how we were doing in school, how old we were. And he started saying that we came to Selma to have a strategy meeting rather. And so they were making their way back to the rear of the church on that day. And I'll never forget this. When we got to the back door, Dr. King was still talking to us as they were making their way back to that back door of the church to go and have their strategy meeting. And when we got to that door, the same man who placed that jacket on Dr. King, he said to us, "You children can go on and play now because we're about to have a meeting." And Dr. King suddenly said to him, "No, let them stay." And he took us by our hands and took us on into that room where that meeting would start. And before that meeting would start, he went and got two little chairs. I'll never forget this. He got two little chairs. And he set those chairs down for us to sit in. And then he would go and get himself a chair. And he set his chair right in front of us. And he continued to talk to us, giving us their special attention. I'll never forget this. And asking us questions. And he said, what do you children want? And my best friend and I looked at each other because we didn't know how to respond to that question. He said, children, when I ask you, what do you want? I want you to say freedom. And he said again, what do you want, children? And we said freedom in our own childish voices. He said, say it loud. And of course, he asked that question again, and we said it loud. And then he asked us the second question. Now, when do you children want it? And we looked at each other, not knowing how to respond to that question. He said, now, children, when I ask you, when do you want it? I want you to say now. And he asked us that question again. When do you children want it? And we said, now. This was my first acquaintance of the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A day and time that I'll never, ever forget, that led me to a moment and a path in my history for the person that I am today. Dr. King impacted my life in a most profound way, and I'm just grateful to have had the opportunity to meet him as that little girl.
Wow. What a story, darling. Keep it in your heart. It's a wonderful story. After hearing my young sister describe her experience, is that the struggle was for her and for her friend and for all the other young Black children we knew. My struggle, of course, began in my hometown with my family and all of us. So I was blessed with a grandfather, great-grand, all the relatives who were engaged and did as much as they could in this struggle, not only going and getting as much academic education, but also teaching each other about the struggle of Black people. I was very lucky and consider myself blessed of having gone to a Black historic college that taught us about Black people and the struggle. So many of them visited the campus, and we were able to actually see, and it did not appear to be so unusual for us momentarily, because they were teachers, they were chemists, they were musicians, they were singers. Their environment, you could hear them at night after dinner singing in the chapel and being together and sitting on the campus grounds talking about the struggle and hearing these wonderful musicians. So it didn't appear to be unusual. Remember, that was went to college in 1947. So that was a period when Black people were very much aware and learning who they were and meeting the people who made a lot of that possible. So it was a natural. I'm blessed to feel that I had not only the family, community environment, but then to go off to the school that we'd heard so much about. First, Black college for Black people, and then just being engaged. So thank God, I can say thank God, the whole environment from birth until today had that kind of exposure that let you know it was worth it, right, my sister?
Yes,
It was worth it. And we learned a lot and we saw the examples that we were struggling for. And we knew we needed to tell our children their story. And whereas the struggle of the freedom effort is still going, isn't it? Still there. You hear it from your young people. We, to repeat my father's expression once again, we keep on keeping on. He was a man who wanted to go to law school after college, went to Purdue Black College in Texas. He couldn't go anywhere and do graduate work in the South. That didn't stop him. My mother taught Black children. So we grew up, praise God, in an environment that encouraged and feeling the need to still tell those stories to my 4 now great grands, the youngest, number 6, Josie, born just 4 months ago,
wow.
and the other children, to hear those stories and know that their struggle continues. Doesn't it, darling? Your struggle continues.
It continues, the struggle continues, the march continues. And we got to keep on walking, keep on talking, and act.
That's right. So thank you. It's my pleasure to have met you, and I'm so proud of what you do. Thank you for helping our children know who they are with the pride that they need to have
Thank you.
in knowing they are a product of that struggle. So when you have no idea what your elders feel when they look and listen to the product that we prayed would come from all of the struggle and hope of your ancestors, and there you are, living it out for us. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much for giving
Thank you, my darling. How very nice. And I wish you good health, darling, and safety.
Thank you.
And keep telling our children who they are.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
It's been an honor for me.
It's been my honor. Hope to see you in the future.
The same here.
Come back to Minnesota.
I will. I'm looking forward to that. And
well,
one of the first persons that I'm going to be asking about. So
I hope.
I just want to give you a big hug.
I too.
I love you.
I love you too, darling. You are worth everything we can think about. So thank you very much. Love to your mother, your grandmother, your great aunts, all the women who made you who you are. So thank them for this old lady. And I hope I see you really soon.